Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I'm genuinely so pumped you're joining us today because honestly, we're looking at something truly fascinating. If you're the kind of person who loves to peel back the layers of how society works, really challenge your own assumptions, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We spend so much of our time in this culture just praising the desire to help, right? To fix things, to organize humanity for its own good. But what if, and hear me out here, what if that exact impulse is actually the root of some of our deepest historical struggles? It's a wild thought. Let's unpack the logic behind what we're calling the peril of imposed virtue. Okay, let's dive right into this. We're starting with this incredibly powerful premise from the text. Historically, more harm is done to humanity with positive intentions of a powerful class of people. Literally, I just want you to sit with that for a second. It introduces this central, honestly kind of uncomfortable paradox. It's arguing that the desire to do good, especially when it's wielded by folks with power and influence, is very often the exact mechanism that generates widespread historical harm. So it's not necessarily malice that causes the most damage. No. It's actually a powerful group's unshakable conviction that they know exactly what is best for everyone else.
Which brings us to part one, the paradox of intentions, the urge to enforce.
So let's quickly define our terms here. The text describes imposed virtue as forcing ideologies, dictating others' lives, and imposing certain rules in the name of welfare on humanity. Notice the language here. Actions like forcing, dictating, imposing, these are inherently aggressive words, right? Yet they're being done in the name of welfare and virtue. As the source points out, this approach always stems from a powerful class asserting control. It's this top-down dynamic, where one group decides the moral or practical framework and then just rigidly applies it to everyone else, completely regardless of individual autonomy. To truly grasp the scale of this concept, you really have to look at the sheer volume of human experience it affects. The text makes this incredibly clear. It argues that more harm is done by telling people what is good for them. More harm is done by forcing ideologies and imposing rules in the name of welfare. More harm is done by proving which God is greater, by changing people, and by dictating others' lives. It's a massive, overwhelming list when you look at it all together. Whether we're talking about our homes, our governments, or our places of worship, the impulse to override someone else's agency for their own supposed good is framed here as a universal and universally destructive human habit. Moving on to part two, the weight of ideology, weaponized beliefs. Here, the philosophy makes a really bold historical observation. It states that immense harm stems from forcing ideologies onto others in the name of God, religion, caste, or creed. Now, it's important to note the danger highlighted here isn't in the belief itself. Not at all. It's in the forceful compulsion of that belief onto populations that just don't share it. The text is fundamentally critiquing the idea that anyone's worldview is so perfect that it justifies eliminating the choices of others. It's a really impartial look at how macro-level systems get weaponized. And this brilliantly illustrates the core friction. Think about the friction of ideological supremacy. That urgent, unyielding need to prove which God or which system is greater. The text views this as an impulse to dominate, right? To win, to establish a hierarchy of truth. Now, compare that to this simple piece of just saying, your God is my God, the piece of mutual acceptance. The argument here is that the historical violence humanity experiences is largely born out of that desperate urge to prove supremacy, rather than simply embracing a shared, peaceful coexistence. So let's see how this builds into the realm of secular governance and everyday society. The text argues, more harm is done in imposing certain rules in the name of welfare. Now, at first glance, this is highly counterintuitive. We naturally think that rules designed for welfare are, well, helpful. But look closely at that word imposing. It's like, think of a top-down corporate policy crafted by executives who genuinely mean well, but the policy literally ruins the daily workflow and morale of the ground-level employees. The source is arguing that when well-meaning rules are forced onto a population without any consideration for their unique contexts, it just creates resistance, strips away individual responsibility, and often causes all sorts of unseen collateral damage. All right, part three. The illusion of control, interpersonal dynamics. So we've looked at the macro. Now let's zoom in on the micro. The text asserts, more harm is done by changing people, and more harm is done by dictating others' lives. Think about the underlying logic here for a second. How often do we step into a partner's, a sibling's, or maybe a teenager's life, just absolutely certain that we hold the master script for their happiness? We think we know exactly what career they should choose or who they should date. But the argument here is that when you attempt to mold someone into your version of an ideal, you aren't actually helping them. Actually, you're invalidating their personal journey.
Dictating choices is framed as a massive generator of interpersonal suffering. So, the crucial point is, it all boils down to the total futility of controlling the uncontrollables. Human nature, individual choices, personal beliefs, they inherently refuse to be shaped by force. Expending your energy, your resources, and all that emotional capital trying to force a shape onto something that naturally resists it? Well, the text points out that this just creates immense frustration for the person imposing the virtue and deep resentment for the person receiving it. It is literally a lose-lose scenario.
Which leads us to our final section, Part 4, the power of acceptance, the ultimate antidote.
Just look at this striking contrast presented in the text. You have the constant nagging urge of telling people what is good for them, stacked up against the profound simplicity of leaving them alone. It almost sounds too simple, doesn't it? But within this philosophical framework, stepping back is actually considered the highest form of respect. Leaving people alone isn't about apathy. It's not about abandonment. It's about acknowledging their sovereign right to navigate their own lives, make their own mistakes, and discover their very own definition of the good. The radical idea here is that sometimes doing absolutely nothing is the most genuinely helpful thing you can possibly do.
We see a very similar resolution here. Instead of trying to change people, the source suggests we embrace mutual acceptance. True welfare is never found in a tightly gripped fist, It's found in the open palm. It requires tremendous humility for a powerful group, or honestly even just a well-meaning individual, to step back and accept others exactly as they are. The takeaway is that peace is achieved not when everyone finally agrees on one imposed standard of virtue, but when we collectively stop imposing our standards on one another. Which leaves us staring at a pretty profound question. Are we trying to control the uncontrollable? I really want you to take this with you today. Think about the areas in your own life, maybe in your family, or even society at large, where the illusion of control is masquerading as virtue. Are those well-intentioned rules, ideologies, and interventions around us truly fostering welfare? Or are they, just maybe, inadvertently creating more harm? It's an absolutely fascinating lens through which to view human history and our own daily interactions. Thank you so much for exploring this with me on The Explainer today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you all next time.